Hi, welcome to the Coaching Game. I'm Laurie Lawson, and tonight my guest is Dinorah Nieves. Hey, Dinorah.
Hi, Laurie.
I have to tell you, I saw Dinorah when she was at a book signing for this fantastic book that she wrote called Love You. And I said, oh, I want her on my show. Because her journey is fascinating, and she is not shy. She tells you all about it. So I guess the first question, tell us, I know, and I have to tell you, I'm going to name drop, even though it's not my name. I know she does some consulting on a really cool television show. She wants to tell you which one she can. And I know you're doing coaching, and I know you're doing behavioral science. How did this all come about?
Yeah.
How did this get started?
It's been really interesting. So I started working on my doctorate in sociology in 2004, and at the same time I was a mediator at a middle school. And I loved the coaching people through the difficult conversations. I loved that piece. But as a mediator, I couldn't really give advice. I couldn't guide. Mm-hmm. I just had to interpret and translate. And I felt like that was a limitation because I was learning so much and I couldn't really pass the information on in a real way. And so I got trained in counseling and then certified in coaching through Martha Beck, who was phenomenal, and that just started me right off. And I've been doing coaching since 2007, and I did a lot of executive management and nonprofit, and I did spoken word, and I did writing for periodicals, and I just wanted a way to bring all of the work together. And so I got into the wellness area and really sort of found my niche. And for me, wellness spans across all of the dimensions. So we're talking emotional, financial, social, spiritual, all of it. And so the coaching has really been the foundation, and it goes into all of these different areas: writing, consulting, teaching, the one-on-one individual coaching, the group work. It's phenomenal. Well, you know, it's phenomenal work. It's phenomenal work.
What's great about this book is that it's a personal journey, but it's a personal journey where Dinorah shares advice, anecdotes out the wazoo. The anecdotes, okay,
My
which
whole
is great.
life is an
Yes, it's right
anecdote.
here. And also a little bit of research. It's like, well, here's where I got that information from. It's just, it's pretty fascinating. And if that's not enough, she writes in a poetic manner. And it's not that you're going to have to rhyme every sentence, but it's just. And it's not flowery, but it's so descriptive and it's so beautiful. So it's a potpourri of cool things.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
You know, I love the self-help world. And for me, one of the limitations that I found is everyone was very esoteric and very profound and very enlightened. And I was this really smart, kind of insightful, around the way girl, you know what I mean, who just had these really difficult experiences and had found a way to navigate them that I didn't think was difficult for other people to learn. I just thought it was something we're not taught. And so for me, a big piece of writing the book was making it accessible so that people enjoyed reading it and so that people could find in it something that resonated with their journey. And so that's what I did. I wrote about my journey, and it included, you know, phenomenal things and not so phenomenal things.
Something we've all been through.
Yeah. You know, the falling in love and the breaking up and the, you know, wonderful moments where you feel like you are on top of the world, and the moments where you feel like the whole world is on your shoulders.
And yet you are the same person throughout, and that's what's always been amazing to me. It's like, how can you feel so great one day, and then the next day it's like, oh, this is so bad. But I like what you did with loneliness. Loneliness became a friend, a partner, sometimes an unwanted partner.
Yeah, my one consistent romantic relationship.
He was always there, yes, he or she, whoever it may be.
That energy, right?
Yeah. And so, is it fair to say that eventually you learned? No, I'm not going to say is it fair, because that's my perception. I find that when I'm unattached to somebody, I am so productive. I get so much done, and it's like, well, no, that's not good because I want to be attached to somebody.
Yeah.
But it's really very productive. What did you do with loneliness to make it a partner as opposed to a foe and an enemy?
I think the issue is that in the absence of really knowing myself, I developed this attachment to loneliness because it was the only other energy available to me constantly. And so the more comfortable that I got with myself and the more I found out about myself and the more things about myself I liked and the more time with myself I enjoyed, the less important that relationship seemed. And so the less power that loneliness had. And it didn't become as absent as it did become an area where I just didn't choose to focus my attention, my energy, my time, my affection, my attachment anymore.
Okay, and so the relationships in here, then they just depowered depowered the loneliness until they weren't
temporarily.
there.
Yeah.
They didn't last, and then,
temporarily.
Whoa, and then they sort of he was garnering his strength as you were
exactly.
having a good time.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what it was. And so that was a big piece of it for me, was trying to figure out, what do I even like about myself? You know, why I'm so caught up in other people not wanting to be with me. I don't want to be with me. What am I expecting of others that I'm not willing to do?
Wow.
Right? And so that was really a game changer, is figuring out, okay, if I'm so awesome that I'm willing to criticize other people for not being with me, then what am I missing out on when I don't want to be with me? And really finding that and filling that gap so that I could really enjoy that time.
When did you come to the realization that you didn't want to be with you?
At some point, after a lot of Law and Order marathons and a lot of crying in the middle of the night in my first apartment alone in New York City, I had a cold. There was no one around. I'm a baby when I get sick. I don't get sick a lot. I have a good immune system. People joke with me because I'm always like eating the lime that, some random person touched and put on my cup. I'm one of those people, so I don't get sick often, but when I get sick, I get sick. I like to be taken care of. I turn into a whiny little kid, and there was no one to comfort me. And, those are the moments. We're so accustomed to having other people around. And those are the moments that trigger that attack, right? The first time that, I was out of a relationship and all of a sudden couldn't button the button on the back of the dress or couldn't, tie the chain. And I was like, crap, there's no one here to help me do this. Because there's no one here for me. Because I'm all alone. Because I'm a failure. Because I don't deserve anyone. Why? That kind of thing, right? Exactly. So those are the triggers that I think, little by little started to pile up very quickly. And then it became clear that what I was struggling the most with was not having the support that I felt that I needed, not having the attention that I felt that I needed, not having the validation that I felt that I needed, and never having learned how to give that to myself. Right? And believing that it was someone else's responsibility to do that. And then not having that person there, whoever that person, in quotes, was supposed to be, right? Who just, random job opening, you know what I mean? With no clear job description and no good criteria for hiring, just a random job.
Come on over and let's give it a try.
Exactly.
Let's give it a try. Well, so many people spend their time running from loneliness. Do you feel that it's necessary to just make friends? Because it seems that's what you did in the book. It's like, hey, here you are, but you know what? I can live with this.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing for me was that loneliness is really a perspective, much more than a condition, right? So just being alone doesn't in and of itself require you to feel lonely. The loneliness comes from the idea that alone you are missing something. Right? And so for me, it wasn't really about making friends with loneliness as much as it was about debunking the power. And that came when I got comfortable in solitude. And it was just a shift in perspective, just looking at solitude as an opportunity to be with myself, as opposed to the absence of another person that somehow indicated something about me.
Right.
Yeah.
It was how do I feel about me as
Yeah.
opposed to how do you feel about me? I don't
Yeah,
care.
yeah, because then it was how do you feel about me, and then how do I feel about how do you feel about me, and then how do you feel about that? Who wants to play that game?
I know, it's exhausting.
It's
totally
horrible.
exhausting.
It's horrible.
So what would you say? Now you've got the comprehensive. The subtitle is 12 Ways to Be Who You Love and Love Who You Are.
Yeah.
So what was one of the first steps you took to start loving yourself, to truly love yourself unjudgmentally and unconditionally?
Meditation, for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
And I still, because I think it's important that this is always a practical conversation, right? I always tell the truth. I'm not like it's some enlightened master, like levitating on a mountain somewhere, right? I still struggle. There are days I don't do it. I feel it when I don't do it. And sometimes it's easier than other times, but being able to catch your thoughts and listen to that voice and figure out what's going on in there and then either quiet it or challenge it or replace it, that is such an important skill. For so many years, I just thought whatever was going on in there was inevitable. I just thought it had to happen. And I was just literally walking through the world guided by whatever mess of thoughts had sort of come together in my mind. And it never dawned on me that I had some control over what I was thinking, how I was thinking, that I could change it, that I could replace it with something else, that I could make it not true, that I could stop believing it.
You do all that while you're meditating? See, I'm thinking I need a white screen and no thoughts, and that's why I can't meditate. It's like, that doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
But you're saying catch the thought,
challenge
the thought?
There are many different ways of meditating. There's transcendental meditation, I think, is probably the most popular. But for sure, there are other orientations to meditation, many of which agree that it's something you do in real time, that it's not about just finding a corner and being able to totally quiet your mind, that in some ways that's sort of I don't want to say it's a fantasy, but that it's a luxury that we don't all always have, right? And so there is something about the skill, the ability to quiet your mind long enough to understand that the narrative is not necessarily true just because it's on, right?
Which is always is, yes.
Right. And so no, I had never called bullshit on my thoughts. Ooh, can I curse?
You just did.
I had never called BS on my thoughts, right? I had never, I'm a pretty intelligent person, which totally works against me often.
Seriously,
because as smart people know, we think a lot, and we believe that what we think is true because we thought it. And we've been told for so long that there's validity to our thoughts, right, that we over-depend on our cognition. So a large part of it was just calling BS on a lot of the things that I was thinking. Oh, I'm never going to find anyone. Oh, I have no reason to believe that's true. Why am I thinking that? Where did I get that from? Right? Just like a constant interaction with the narrative.
Wow. And she takes this, not only starting with meditation, but you take it to nutrition, you take it to spirituality, you take it through the whole gamut here, to education, to teaching yourself. I love the 3-step process that you said, and I think that goes in with meditation, and it's like work your thoughts, process your feelings, and modify your behavior. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit? Because it's such a succinct, beautiful thing to remember.
Thank you.
But what's it mean?
So working your thoughts is about exactly what I just talked about. It's about really being able to understand the narrative that's constantly flowing through your mind, and then making sense of it, and being willing to challenge the things that don't serve you. They really just don't serve you. And having an idea of what is serving you. So that's really working your thoughts. Processing your emotions and your feelings is really about understanding what emotions are coming up for you, what's being triggered for you, where did you learn to feel that, how do you express that feeling, do you express that feeling, right? Do you sit on that feeling? Because as women, how many things are we taught to suppress? And then we're, as modern women, right? So as women, there's a lot of things we're taught to suppress, and that as modern women, you don't want to be the nagger or the emotional one, or fight, fall into any stereotype. And so you end up with a lot of other levels and layers of suppressed emotions. And so how do you make sense of what's going on for you emotionally? And then modifying your behavior is really about taking tangible, concrete steps toward doing things differently. It's not just enough to think about the world differently or to feel differently, but you actually have to act on the changes that are going on for you both emotionally and mentally.
It's kind of like that old adage, dress to be and this is very simple, but dress to be the position you want to be. So it's like, okay, start acting like you really want to be. But this sounds a bit overwhelming, so I want to tell you that Dinorah will be the first person to say, I didn't do this by myself. So at what point do you start asking for help?
Always. Yesterday.
From point one.
10 years ago.
All those times you didn't.
Yes, exactly. The thing is, I'm very clear that I've done nothing by myself. I've had a great support system that probably I could have benefited from earlier, sooner, better, had I been more vulnerable, which is one of the things that I talk about in the book, right? Had I been willing to be more honest with myself and with other people about what were really the things that were aching me, moving me, driving me, paining me, right? So I've had a support system. And there are so many experts in the field that I've benefited from. Reading the books, going to the talks, listening to, the YouTubes, right? I still do. I still take a shower with Abraham Hicks playing in the background, right? Because it is a constant process of work. So I think it is really important, and I talk about this, to nurture relationships. And they can be intimate relationships between people, and they can also be picking up the right book or listening to the right person, but having a multitude of influences that supports you in moving from where you are to where you want to be. It's so important.
I love this. Where does travel come in this? Because there's a whole travel section in
here.
Yeah, of course. Where does that come in?
Why would there be?
I don't know. I never thought of that as self-help, but it's like, why not?
Yeah, because you really do need to know what excites you, right? For me, travel is a big deal, right? And particularly in my relationship now, my fiance is a pilot, and so we do a lot of traveling because it's important to him as well. And it's an area where we connect. But I think for me, what travel does is it helps me to feel free. And that's ultimately what you're trying to accomplish. It might not be travel for everyone, right? But just the activity that helps you to feel free and to connect to that sense of freedom, I think, is what you're looking for. And I talk in the book about, so part 2 of the book is modeled after the 8 Dimensions of Wellness, which is a model that came from Swarbrick out of Rutgers University. And they talk about emotional, social, financial, spiritual, occupational, physical, intellectual, and environmental. So travel was a big deal for me when I was looking at how do I do environmental wellness, and really trying to get a sense of where do I capture and allow myself to be moved by my environment. I'm a New Yorker. If it's cold, I'm walking fast. I might not show up if it snows, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I grew up in that kind of thing. My relationship as a New Yorker, my relationship with my environment was very conditional. I never really grew up hiking or taking in the sights, I was trying to go where I was going, and I was trying to get back before it snowed, right?
And I love New York. Believe me, I love New York. But that is, you do. It's like, let's get there. I got to get a seat. Got to catch a train. Yeah.
So there is a little bit of the hustle and bustle. Is that what they say? Or hustle and tussle?
No, bustle.
Bustle. All right.
I don't know what it means, but that's what they say.
There's a little bit of the hustle and bustle of New York that can, or at least for me, I'm sure there are other people with different experiences, but for me, it kept me from enjoying the air, the sun, the trees, the grass, right? It just wasn't something that I was encouraged to take time to really enjoy. And so traveling allowed me to do that. And then when I was able to do that in other places and really gain an appreciation for the environment, then it opened up my eyes to how I could see my present environment differently. So that was a big deal.
Two conflicting thoughts came to me as you were talking, and one is travel does take you physically out of your box. It definitely does. But then the old adage, wherever you go, there you are. So it's like you gotta. But I when you put me by an ocean, then my problems become this big because it's like, who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? But so that's interesting.
Yeah, we got to the top of a glacier, and I was like, what was I upset about? Why am I mad?
I have a bad hair day, really?
Yeah, why does it matter out here at all? And I thought New York was cold. Was that mine?
Yeah, really.
Was that what I was upset about? No. It does. It changes your perspective. But you made a really good point, which is it's only valuable if you can bring that changed perspective back with you.
Ah,
right?
Yes. Okay, that's
Otherwise, you're stuck in this sort of dichotomy where you are only happy elsewhere.
Right.
And that's not helpful either, right?
Good point.
Yeah. So I think it's important to really be able to absorb enough of the shift where it comes with you.
Maybe an exercise for people who travel is, okay, what are 3 things I'm taking back? And I do that,
I love that
unconsciously, but I think it's, speaking of exercises, this is not the only gem from this lady.
No.
She has a workbook, which I'm dying to see. I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, we'll get you one for sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so what's in the workbook?
So the workbook takes you through 3 activities in each of the dimensions of wellness. And it really guides you through in a very concrete way how you can start to make sense of what I've suggested in the book.
Wow.
Yeah. So for the gratitude section, for example, there's a whole thing about glad lists. Do you use glad lists?
No.
Tell me something that you're grateful for, that you liked, that you adored, that you
glad
delighted
list?
in. Yes.
Oh, I thought you said glad less, and I'm going, no, I try
no.
not to.
No, glad list was the first chapter.
I said, okay, no, glad list. Absolutely, gratitude,
So there are a lot of concrete exercises there. There's a guided visualization to help you meditate. There's a lot of concrete exercises that will help you put into practice the principles that I discussed in the original book.
Okay, Amazon, of course, and is it on your website?
BarnesandNoble.com.
Which is,
yes, on my website as well.
You can't see my finger. The website's on. The website's on the bottom. You can check it out there, and BarnesandNoble.com. So wherever you get your books or whatever, is it Kindle version yet?
Yes, there's a Kindle version. Yes, there's a Kindle version of this, and also there's a Latina edition.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Specifically, a few pages thrown in specifically for the Latinas that talks about how some of this selfless, loving model shows up for us. It's certainly not unique to Latinas, but there are particular ways that we are taught not to put ourselves first.
That's so interesting, because is this culture acultural, and is it a-racial, and or is this really deep down core everybody?
Yeah, I think it's deep down core everybody, and I speak in the Latina edition. I'm very clear that this is not only about Latinas. It just so happens that I'm very familiar with how it shows up for Latinas. So I can talk specifically to the nuances in our culture, you know, about what romantic love looks like in novelas, right? And about, you know, what your mother taught you about what it means to be a woman, right? I can speak to those nuances in a different way, so I do in the Latina edition. But that's why there's a Latina edition, and the original book is targeted to everyone, because I do think it's something that everyone struggles with. We are not taught to or encouraged to put ourselves first. And it's really about learning how to and giving yourself permission to put yourself first, guilt-free and unapologetically.
Now, that brings me, is this agender?
Yes.
It can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anybody.
Yeah, it's funny because when I first started writing the book and people asked me, who was your target? And I started talking about women, everyone agreed this was a book for women because women love self-help. And then like 10 of my clients who are men were all like, oh, but we love this. This is so right on. So I do think that it is something that can span.
So it's human.
Yeah, it's human.
It's the human thing.
Yeah.
Well, you know what if they go to your website, what are they going to find?
Yeah, so go to the website, www.dinorahnieves.com, and you have access to everything there. So there are a number of self-help blogs that can just get you started, 1,000 words or less, to help you start to look at some of the ways that you may be able to put yourself first, guilt-free, unapologetically. There's my podcast. You have access to the book, the Latina edition, and the workbook. Also there's an app that can be downloaded for an iPhone or an Android that will help you with guided visualizations, prayers. There's some poems there for you.
Okay.
So there's a whole universe of self-love resources that are available on my website, and learn more about me and my journey.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, what is your journey? Where are you going? Where are you going from here?
Oh, I don't
to
know.
Lunch? Where else?
I think, the next step for me is really thinking about, I'm 39. So 40 is a whole other world for women, right?
You don't know. You got a lot more in store, right? Trust me.
So I think that's the exciting part is I'm about to create a whole new version of myself as I approach this fourth decade. So it's really exciting.
Are you keeping notes? Because we want to hear more.
Yes.
Are you? Yeah.
And
good.
whatever I'm not keeping notes on, I'm sure my fiance has in a journal somewhere about what
I'm sure
happened
it's a
that
gratitude
day.
journal. Yes. Today, Dinorah really yelled at me bad.
Yeah. Today I did not kill her when she talked about the laundry basket for the 18th time.
There you go. See, a little gratitude there.
A little gratitude everywhere.
Yes. All right, so I think this is so fantastic, and I really think that I think the message has come, because if you had to give someone, I know your first step would be meditation, and I love the revised edition of meditation. It's like it doesn't have to be that blank screen and and just blissing out.
That works too, but
but I think that's something to be attained. I don't think you could just jump right into it. What advice would you give? I've heard you say a few times, unapologetically, blah, blah, blah. What would you just tell somebody to get them started on this road?
I talk in the book about the IP, the intuitive precognitive prophecy, right? That everybody has. Everybody has this IPP, this thing that is inside, this voice that's inside of them that existed before they really knew, and sort of projects out to them who they want and need to be, and is constantly speaking to them. And I think I encourage everyone to start developing that voice, to listen to that voice, to quiet all the other voices, and to really get a good sense of who they want to be, how they want to be seen, how they want to feel, what kind of impact they want to have, what do they enjoy, really get to know themselves, and then develop a strategy for how to move in that direction, and allow that to be what guides them. Yeah,
and I think what I'm taking from this conversation with you is challenge your thoughts. It's like, who said that's true? Just keep challenging. It's like, where did I get that from?
Yeah.
Is that valid? And I hate when and a coaching question is, well, how true is that? It's like, what are you calling me, a liar? I don't know. As far as I know, it's true. But start challenging.
Really.
And start questioning. I would say, go get this book, because it's such a, like I said, it's such a delight in so many aspects, but it really is very honest and true, and you're going to relate to at least one thing in every chapter. I guarantee it.
Yeah, so, I like that guarantee.
Guarantee it.
And write to me and let me know about the one thing in every chapter.
It might be her next book.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dinorah, for being on the coaching show.
This is great. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.